The days following the battle were strange and emotional for everyone. Coalition crews worked alongside human engineers to repair damaged ships. Medical teams from both species treated the wounded together. The dead were honored in ceremonies that combined human military traditions with coalition. Mourning rituals, Xylith attended every funeral. She spoke the names of every coalition crew member who had died defending their people. Captain Merrick and his crew from the Harmony, Lieutenant Voss, who had died defending the engineering section of the Starlight, young Turan, the scientist who invented the gravity weapons, killed when a Kreger boarding party breached her laboratory. Each name was a weight on Xylith's hearts. These were people who had chosen peace their entire lives. They should have died old and comfortable, surrounded by family. Instead, they died fighting. She wondered if she had made the right choice, calling the humans for help. Had she saved her people or corrupted them? Captain Chen found her after one funeral, standing alone in an observation room, looking out at the stars. "Commander, you are blaming yourself for the deaths?" "I can see it on your face." Xylith did not deny it. "I changed everything, Captain. Before I sent that distress signal, my people lived in peace. Now we have soldiers and weapons. We have war dead to mourn. Did I destroy what made the coalition special?" Chen was quiet for a moment. "Can I show you something?" She pulled up a holographic display showing data from the battle. "Look at this. See these numbers? These are the projected casualties if the coalition had faced this Krieger attack alone." Without any training or preparation, Xylith looked at the numbers and felt sick. The projections showed total annihilation. Every ship destroyed. Every crew member killed or captured. The entire coalition fleet would have been wiped out in less than 3 hours. "Now look at the actual casualties," Chen continued. The numbers changed. 12 ships lost instead of 70. 347 dead instead of thousands. You did not corrupt your people, Commander. You saved them. Yes, you changed the coalition. But change is not always bad. Sometimes it is necessary for survival. But we have become warriors. We have learned to kill. No, Chen said firmly. You have learned to defend. There is a difference. During the battle, your boarding teams captured Kreger warriors instead of killing them. Your ships used non-lethal weapons whenever possible. Even in the middle of desperate combat, you tried to preserve life. That is not the behavior of killers. That is the behavior of protectors who wish they did not have to fight at all. Xylith considered this. Chen was right. The coalition had not abandoned its values. They had adapted them to a dangerous reality. They had found a way to be strong without becoming cruel. What happens now? Xylith asked. The Kreger will eventually recover. They might come back with an even larger fleet. Chen shook her head. I do not think so. We captured their command cast alive. We are negotiating with them now. The Kreger respects strength above all else. They attacked the coalition because they saw weakness. Now they see strength. They see a people who can defend themselves and who have powerful allies. The Kreger might be brutal, but they are not stupid. They will look for easier prey elsewhere. Over the next weeks, this prediction proved accurate. The captured Kreger commanders agreed to a treaty. They would stay out of coalition space and end all hostile actions. In exchange, the coalition agreed not to pursue further punishment for the attacks. It was not perfect justice, but it was practical peace. The humans began to reduce their military presence in coalition space. Forward Base Delta would remain, but most of the Terran Defense Fleet ships returned to their patrol routes on the Galactic Rim. However, the advisors and trainers stayed. The partnership was permanent now. Lieutenant Rodriguez approached Xylith before his ship departed. He looked different than when he first arrived. More relaxed. Happier. Commander, I wanted to thank you personally. These past months have changed me. How so, Lieutenant? I have been a soldier my entire adult life. I thought fighting was all I was good for, but your people taught me meditation, philosophy, and art. You showed me that there is more to life than combat. I am going back to Earth when my tour ends. I am going to teach, not fight. Help other veterans find peace like I did here. Xylith felt warmth spread through her. I am glad we could help you, Lieutenant. Just as you helped us. Perhaps that is what this partnership is really about. Healing each other. Rodriguez smiled and clasped her shoulder gently. Yeah, I think you are right, Commander. Take care of yourself. After he left, Xylith visited the Coalition Training Center. It was still active, but the atmosphere had changed. The emphasis now was on defensive tactics and emergency response rather than pure combat training. Coalition security forces were learning to be first responders, rescuers, and peacekeepers rather than warriors. A new class was starting. The instructor was Prel, the young engineer who had struggled so much during the first training sessions. He stood confidently in front of 50 new recruits, explaining defensive formations and coordination techniques. He had learned from Rodriguez and was now teaching others. Remember, Prel was saying, we do not fight because we love violence. We fight because we love what we are protecting. Our families, our culture, our values. We prepare for the worst so that we can preserve the best. That is the Coalition way now. Xylith smiled. Prel understood. They all understood. The Coalition had not become human. They had become a stronger version of themselves. She received a message from the Council requesting her presence. When she arrived at the Grand Chamber, she found it full of representatives from other peaceful species. Word of the Coalition's victory had spread throughout the galaxy. Now other civilizations wanted to learn how to defend themselves without abandoning their values. The Council Elder, ancient being named Saverin, addressed the assembly. For thousands of years, peaceful species like ours have been victims. We relied on isolation and hope to protect us. But the galaxy is dangerous, and hope is not a shield. The Coalition has shown us a new path. We can be strong and peaceful at the same time. We can learn to defend ourselves while staying true to who we are. Commander, the Council has decided to create a new organization. We are calling it the Peaceful Defense Alliance. It will be a coalition of species dedicated to protecting each other and teaching defensive strategies that align with our values. We would like you to lead this organization, with Captain Chen as co-commander representing the humans. Xylith was stunned. This was bigger than she had imagined. Not just the Coalition and the humans working together, but a galaxy-wide movement of peaceful species learning to protect themselves. I accept, she said quietly, but only if we remember the cost. War is never good, even when it is necessary. We must always work toward a galaxy where defense is unnecessary because true peace exists. The Assembly agreed. The Peaceful Defense Alliance was born. Captain Chen attended the founding ceremony. She stood beside Xylith as representatives from 20 different species signed the Alliance Treaty. This is remarkable, Chen said. You have created something that will change the galaxy. Peaceful species working together, protecting each other, becoming strong without becoming violent. We could not have done it without you, Xylith replied. The humans showed us that strength and compassion can coexist. You are warriors with hearts. Fighters who hate fighting. That paradox is what makes you special. Chen smiled. And you are peaceful people who learn to be fierce when necessary. That paradox is what makes you special too. Maybe that is the secret. Not being purely one thing or another, but finding balance. They stood together, watching the celebration. Coalition artists performed alongside human musicians. Scientists from multiple species discussed collaborative research projects. Children from different worlds played together, unafraid of differences. Xylith thought back to that terrifying day when she sent the distress signal. She had been so afraid of summoning the Deathworlders. She thought they would be monsters. Instead, they became friends, teachers, and partners. They had saved the Coalition. But in a way, the Coalition had saved them too. They gave the humans a purpose beyond war. A reminder that strength should be used to protect, not conquer. The galaxy was indeed a dangerous place. There would always be threats like the Kreger. Always be predators looking for prey. But now, the prey had learned to fight back. More importantly, they had learned to help each other. The Peaceful Defense Alliance would grow. Other species would join. The humans would continue teaching defensive tactics while learning peaceful philosophies in return. Together, they would create a new model for civilization. not based on conquest or isolation, but on mutual protection and cooperation. Xylith looked at Captain Chen and saw her own thoughts reflected in the human's eyes. They had both changed, both grown, both become something more than they were before. The distress signal that had seemed like a desperate mistake had become the beginning of something extraordinary. Two very different species had found common ground. The fierce protectors and the peaceful philosophers had learned from each other, created something neither could achieve alone. As celebrations continued around them, Xylith made a silent promise. She would never forget the cost of this victory. The people who died, the innocents lost. But she would also never forget the hope gained, the strength found, the friendships forged. The Deathworlders had come when called. They had fought beside the Coalition and taught them to fight for themselves. But more than that, they had shown that being strong and being good were not opposites. They were partners, just like the humans in the Coalition. The galaxy would never be completely safe, but it was a little less terrifying now, a little more hopeful, and that was worth everything they had sacrificed to achieve it. Xylith looked up at the stars, no longer afraid of what might be out there in the darkness, because now she knew that whatever threats existed, her people would not face them alone. They had allies. They had strength. And most importantly, they had found a way to protect their values while defending their lives. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in her life, Xylith faced it with confidence rather than fear. The Coalition had evolved. The humans had found new purpose. Together, they had changed the galaxy, and this was only the beginning, Commander. Xylith felt her entire body shake as another explosion rocked her ship. The metal walls groaned and bent around her. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. Her crew members were screaming into their communication devices, trying to coordinate with the other ships in their fleet. But it was no use. They were losing badly. The Kreger swarm had appeared out of nowhere. One moment Xylith and her people were exploring a beautiful nebula, taking samples and photographs. The next moment, hundreds of enemy ships surrounded them. The Kreger were known throughout the galaxy as ruthless attackers. They took what they wanted and destroyed everything else. Xylith's people were not fighters. The Harmonious Coalition believed in peace, science, and art. They had no weapons on their ships except small defense shields. Those shields were breaking now, one by one. She watched on her screen as another Coalition ship exploded into a ball of fire. 50% of her people died in that moment. She felt sick. Her second-in-command, a gentle being named Torvin, looked at her with fear in his large eyes. "Commander, we have lost 6 ships. Our shields are at 20%. We cannot survive another hour of this attack." Xylith knew he was right. She looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. They were scientists, teachers, and artists. They had families waiting for them at home. Children who would never see their parents again if she did not do something right now. There was only one option left. It was forbidden. It was dangerous. But it was their only chance. "Open the emergency channel," she said quietly. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "The one that reaches to the outer rim." Torvin's face went pale. "Commander, you cannot mean the forbidden frequency. The one that reaches the Deathworlders?" Every species in the civilized galaxy knew about the Deathworlders. They came from a planet called Earth, a world so dangerous that it seemed impossible anything could survive there. But humans did not just survive. They conquered their planet. They fought through ice ages that should have killed them. They survived diseases that wiped out most of their population. They lived through wars that nearly destroyed their entire world. When humans finally reached the stars, other species were terrified. These beings were strong, fast, and incredibly violent compared to everyone else. They came from a planet with gravity so heavy that it crushed most other species. Their atmosphere was filled with a highly reactive gas called oxygen that was almost poisonous to many aliens. Their planet had creatures that hunted and killed for food. Earth was a death world, and humans were its ultimate predators. The Harmonious Coalition had voted 300 years ago to avoid all contact with Earth. It was better to stay away from such dangerous beings. Let them stay in their corner of the galaxy, far from peaceful civilizations. But now, Xylith had no choice. "Yes," she said firmly. "Open the channel to the Deathworlders. Send a distress signal on the Terran frequency. Tell them we are under attack and need immediate help." Torvin hesitated, then nodded. His fingers moved across the control panel. The ship's computer made a strange sound as it accessed a frequency that had never been used before. The message went out into space. Traveling faster than light toward the edge of the galaxy where the human fleets patrolled, for several minutes, nothing happened. The Kreger continued their attack. Another coalition ship lost its shields completely. Xylith could see the enemy preparing to board it. Her people would be taken as slaves or killed. She felt helpless. Then the communication system crackled to life. A voice came through, speaking in the common galactic language, but with a strange accent. The voice was flat and emotionless, like a machine. Message received. Coalition vessel. Terran Defense Fleet en route to your position. Estimated time of arrival, 14 hours. Hold your position. Do not surrender. Help is coming, the message ended. The channel went silent. Xylith stared at the communication panel. 14 hours. They had to survive for 14 more hours against an enemy that was destroying them. It seemed impossible. But what choice did they have? "All ships," she broadcast to her remaining fleet. "We have called for help. The Terran Defense Fleet is coming. We must survive until they arrive. Use everything you have. Keep moving. Protect each other. We can do this." She tried to sound confident, but inside she was terrified. Not just of the Krieger, but of what she had just done. She had invited the Deathworlders into Coalition space. She had opened a door that had been locked for 3 centuries. There was no going back now. The next 14 hours were the longest of Xylith's life. Her fleet ran and dodged and used every trick they knew to stay alive. They hid behind asteroids. They used the nebula's gas clouds to confuse enemy sensors. They linked their remaining shields together to protect the most damaged ships. The Kreger seemed to enjoy the hunt. They did not rush to finish the Coalition fleet. They played with them like a predator playing with wounded prey. It was cruel and terrifying. Xylith lost 3 more ships during those hours. The cries of her dying crew members echoed in her mind. She would hear those sounds for the rest of her life. But the remaining ships held together. They survived. As the 14th hour approached, Xylith's sensor officer suddenly shouted, "Commander?" Multiple contacts appearing on long-range sensors. "They are coming in fast. It's very fast. I have never seen ships move at such speeds." Xylith's hearts beat faster. "Identify them." The sensor officer's voice was shaking. "The computer identifies them as Terran warships." "Commander, there are 14 of them. They are heading straight for us." Xylith looked at her screen. She could see the new contacts now, represented as bright dots on the display. They were moving at incredible speeds, much faster than any coalition ship could travel. They were coming from the direction of the Outer Rim. From the dark edges of the galaxy where the Deathworlders lived, she had called them. She had summoned monsters to fight monsters. Now they were here. Xylith did not know if she should feel relieved or more afraid than ever. She was about to find out what happened when you called the Deathworlders for help. The Kreger had noticed the new arrivals too. Their attack patterns changed. They were preparing for a fight. They did not know what was about to hit them. Neither did Xylith. All she could do was watch and wait as the human fleet approached at impossible speeds, ready to enter the battle. The space around Xylith's damaged fleet suddenly changed. Reality itself seemed to tear apart. Bright flashes of light appeared as 14 massive ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The human warships materialized in perfect formation, surrounding the Coalition fleet in a protective pattern. Xylith stared at her screen in shock. She had never seen ships like these before. They were huge, covered in dark armor that seemed to absorb light. Every surface bristled with weapons. Cannons, missile launchers, and devices she could not identify covered the holes. These were not exploration ships or cargo vessels. These were built for one purpose only: war. The Krieger swarm outnumbered the human ships 5-1. But Xylith noticed something strange. The Krieger fleet had stopped attacking. Their ships were holding position, as if they were confused or uncertain. A new voice came over the communication channel. This voice was not mechanical. It was a human female, and she sounded calm. Too calm for someone entering a battlefield? Coalition vessels. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet ship, Indomitable. We have your position and have assessed the tactical situation. Recommend you fall back to coordinates we are transmitting now. Move quickly. This is about to get messy. Xylith's communication officer looked at her, waiting for orders. She nodded. Do as they say. All ships retreat to the coordinates the humans sent us. Maximum speed. The coalition ships began to move away from the battle zone. They were slow and damaged, but they followed the human instructions. Xylith watched her screen, unable to look away from what was about to happen. The Krieger made their decision. They attacked. Hundreds of enemy ships rushed toward the 14 human vessels, firing all their weapons. It should have been an overwhelming assault. The humans should have been destroyed in seconds. Instead, the human fleet transformed. The ships moved in ways that seemed impossible. They spun and dodged with a grace that their massive size should not allow. They split into smaller groups, each group working together like parts of a single organism. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The weapons fire from the human ships was unlike anything Xylith had ever seen. Bright beams of energy cut through Krieger vessels like they were made of paper. Missiles flew in complex patterns, hitting multiple targets with perfect accuracy. Magnetic accelerators launched metal projectiles at incredible speeds, punching through enemy shields and armor. But it was not just the weapons that shocked Xylith. It was how the humans fought. The Coalition had always believed that space combat was about defense, about surviving until you could escape. The humans did not fight that way. They hunted Captain Chen's ship, the Indomitable, led a group of 4 vessels straight into the thickest part of the enemy formation. They did not try to avoid combat. They charged directly at it. Krieger ships exploded around them. The human vessels took hits from enemy weapons, but their shields held. They kept pushing forward, deeper into the enemy fleet. Another group of human ships circled around the Krieger from behind. They moved in complete silence, their engines somehow masked from sensors. When they opened fire, the enemy ships never saw it coming. Dozens of Krieger vessels were destroyed before they could react. Xylith realized what she was watching. The humans were not just fighting. They were using tactics, strategy, and coordination that came from thousands of years of warfare. Every movement had a purpose. Every shot was calculated. This was not random violence. This was controlled, precise, and absolutely ruthless. The Krieger began to panic. Their formations broke apart. Ships tried to flee in different directions, but the human fleet had surrounded them. There was no escape. Wherever the Krieger ships turned, human vessels were waiting. One large Krieger command ship tried to ram the Indomitable. It was a desperate move, a suicide attack. Captain Chen's ship simply moved aside at the last second. As the enemy ship passed by, the Indomitable fired at point-blank range. The Krieger vessel broke in half, its engines exploding in a brilliant flash. The battle lasted 33 minutes. When it ended, the Krieger swarm was running away. More than half their fleet had been destroyed or disabled. The survivors fled at maximum speed, desperate to escape the Deathworlders. The human ships did not chase them. They had accomplished their mission. The Coalition fleet was safe. The threat was eliminated. Xylith sat in her command chair, unable to speak. Her crew was silent, staring at their screens. They had just watched 14 ships destroy an enemy force 5 times larger. The humans had made it look easy. Captain Chen's face appeared on the communication screen. She was a middle-aged woman with short dark hair and brown eyes that seemed to see everything. Her expression was calm, but Xylith could see the intensity behind those eyes. This was a person who had seen many battles and survived them all. Coalition fleet, this is Captain Chen. The immediate threat has been neutralized. We are scanning the area for any remaining enemy vessels. Your ships have taken significant damage. We can provide repair assistance and medical support. Please transmit your casualty reports and damage assessments. Xylith found her voice. Captain Chen, this is Commander Xylith. We thank you for your assistance. You saved our lives. We are transmitting our status now. Chen nodded. Understood, Commander. We are also deploying recovery teams to search for survivors from your destroyed vessels. We will do everything we can to help. She paused. Commander, I would like to invite you and your senior officers to come aboard the Indomitable. We need to discuss the situation and coordinate our next steps. The Krager will report what happened here. They may return with a larger force. The invitation was polite, but Xylith understood it was not really optional. She was about to enter a human warship, something no coalition member had done in 300 years. She was terrified, but she could not refuse. These beings had saved her people. She owed them at least a conversation. I accept your invitation, Captain. I will bring my second-in-command and my security chief. We can be ready to transport over in 1 hour, Chen said. We will prepare quarters for you. Be warned, Commander. Our environmental systems are set for human comfort. You may find the conditions ... challenging. We will do our best to adjust them, but there are limits to what we can change. The screen went dark. Xylith looked at Torvin, her second-in-command. He looked as scared as she felt. But there was also something else in his expression. Curiosity, Commander, he said quietly. We just witnessed something incredible. The humans fought with a skill and coordination that should not be possible. How did they learn to do that? Xylith did not have an answer, but she was about to find out. In 1 hour, she would board a Deathworlder ship and meet face-to-face with beings that the entire galaxy feared. She hoped she would survive the experience. But more than that, she hoped she could understand them, because one thing was clear. The humans were not mindless killers. They were something far more complex and far more dangerous. They were intelligent, organized, and incredibly effective at violence. That combination was terrifying. But it had also saved her people from extinction. Xylith began preparing for the most important meeting of her life. The transport shuttle carried Xylith and her 2 officers toward the human warship. Through the small window, she could see the Indomitable growing larger. The ship was enormous, at least 3 times the size of her flagship. Its dark surface reflected no light, making it look like a hole in space itself. As they approached the docking bay, Xylith felt her breathing become difficult. The shuttle's sensors were already detecting the environmental conditions inside the human ship. The gravity was 1.4 times what she was used to. The oxygen levels were dangerously high. The temperature was hot enough to make her uncomfortable in her protective suit. The shuttle docked with a solid clang. The door opened, and Xylith stepped out onto the deck of a Deathworlder ship. Immediately, she felt the heavy gravity pulling at her body. Each step required effort. Her security chief, a strong warrior named Krell, grunted with discomfort beside her. A group of humans was waiting for them. They stood perfectly still in the heavy gravity that made Xylith struggle. To them, this crushing weight was normal. It was what they had evolved in. These beings were incredibly strong. Captain Chen stepped forward. She was smaller than Xylith expected, but there was something about the way she moved that suggested controlled power. She smiled, showing her teeth. Xylith tried not to flinch. On most species, showing teeth was a threat display. She had to remind herself that humans smiled to show friendliness. Commander Xylith, welcome aboard the Indomitable. I apologize for the environmental conditions. We have adjusted the temperature and humidity in the conference room where we will meet. Unfortunately, we cannot change the gravity without affecting the entire ship's systems. Xylith's translator device worked well with the human language. Thank you, Captain Chen. We will manage. Your assistance to our fleet has earned you our deepest gratitude. Chen nodded and gestured for them to follow. They walked through the corridors of the ship. Everything was built on a larger, heavier scale than Coalition vessels. The walls were thick metal. The doors were massive slabs that could probably withstand explosions. Warning signs in human writing covered every surface. They passed groups of human crew members. All of them stopped and stood aside to let their captain pass. Xylith noticed how they moved. Even the smallest humans walked with a confidence and strength that was intimidating. Their eyes followed the coalition visitors with obvious curiosity. But no fear. The conference room was slightly cooler than the corridors. Chen had prepared refreshments on a table. Xylith's scanner immediately warned her that most of the food and drinks would be toxic to her species. The human diet included substances that would make coalition members very sick. "Please, sit," Chen said, gesturing to chairs that had been modified to accommodate different body types. "I had our engineers adjust these for your comfort, and I apologize about the refreshments. We did not have time to prepare food that would be safe for your biology." Xylith sat carefully. The chair was surprisingly comfortable. "You have been very thoughtful, Captain. May I ask you some questions about what we witnessed today?" "Of course. I imagine you have many questions about us. Your tactics during the battle were extraordinary. The coordination between your ships, the precision of your attacks, the way you anticipated enemy movements. How is this possible? What technology allows such perfect communication and control?" Chen smiled again. "It is not technology, Commander. It is training. Every member of my fleet has trained together for years. We practice combat scenarios constantly. We study enemy tactics and develop responses. We learn to think like a single unit instead of individual ships. This is standard procedure for human military forces." Xylith was confused. "You trained for years just to fight better. But why? Surely there are more important things to do with your time." The captain's expression became more serious. "Commander, let me tell you about Earth. Our planet has tried to kill us since the beginning of our existence. Ice ages buried our ancestors under kilometers of frozen water. Diseases killed millions of us at a time. Predators hunted us when we were weak. Earthquakes, floods, volcanoes, and storms destroyed our homes over and over again." She pulled up a holographic display, showing images of Earth. Xylith saw a beautiful blue and green world. But Chen highlighted the dangerous parts. Massive storms that could flatten cities, volcanic eruptions that could darken the sky for years, oceans that could create waves tall enough to wash away everything on the coast. "We learned to survive by being prepared for the worst," Chen continued. "We learned to fight because everything on our planet fought us. Animals with claws and teeth, insects that carried deadly diseases, even plants that could poison us. We became warriors because we had no choice." "But you also fought each other," Torvin said quietly. "Our records show that humans have waged wars against your own kind for thousands of years." Chen nodded slowly. "Yes, that is our greatest shame and our greatest teacher. We nearly destroyed ourselves many times. We built weapons powerful enough to make our entire planet uninhabitable. We came very close to extinction by our own hands. Then why do you still build weapons? Why do you still train for war?" Xylith asked. "Because we learned something important from our mistakes, Commander. Violence itself is not evil. It is a tool like any other tool. What matters is how you use it and why. We built the Terran Defense Fleet to protect, not to conquer. We train for war so that we can prevent war. We became strong so that we could protect those who are weak." "Yeah?" Chen pulled up more images. These showed human ships defending other species, rescuing civilians from natural disasters, providing medical aid to planets hit by disease, fighting pirates and raiders who preyed on peaceful traders. When we reached the stars, we found a galaxy full of species like yours. Good people who valued peace and knowledge. But we also found predators like the Kreger, beings who use violence to take what they want. Someone has to stand between the predators and their prey. We chose to be that someone." Xylith felt something change in her understanding. She had thought of humans as monsters, as barely controlled killers. But listening to Captain Chen, she realized the truth was more complex. Yes, humans were dangerous. Yes, they were incredibly skilled at violence. But they had chosen to use that skill for protection instead of conquest. "Your distress call did not just reach our ships, Commander. It reached our conscience. We cannot stand by and watch innocent people die when we have the power to save them. That is not who we are anymore. We learned from our bloody history. We grew beyond our violent past. But we did not forget the lessons that violence taught us. Krell, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Captain Chen, what do you want from us? You saved our fleet. Surely you expect something in return. Chen looked directly at him. I will be honest with you. The Krager will come back. They always do. When they report that they were defeated by humans, they will bring a much larger fleet. Your people are not prepared to defend against that kind of attack. She paused, letting that sink in. The Terran Defense Fleet would like to offer the Harmonious Coalition a protection agreement. We will establish a presence in your space. We will train your people in defensive tactics. We will help you build the capability to protect yourselves. In exchange, we ask that you teach us about your sciences, your arts, and your philosophies. Help us become more than just warriors. Xylith looked at Torvin and Krell. This was the moment that would define their future. Accept the humans' offer and change everything about Coalition society. Or refuse and face the Krager alone. I cannot make this decision alone, Zilith said. I must present your offer to our council. But Captain Chen, I will tell them what I have learned today. You are not the monsters we feared. You are something we never expected. You are protectors who understand the cost of violence. Chen stood and extended her hand in the human gesture of friendship. Xylith stood as well, fighting against the heavy gravity. She reached out and clasped the captain's hand. It was strong and warm. The grip was firm but careful, as if Chen was very aware of her own strength and was being gentle. Whatever your council decides, Commander, know this. The Terran Defense Fleet will not abandon you. We answered your distress call. We will see this through. As Xylith and her officers returned to their shuttle, she thought about everything she had learned. The Deathworlders were real, and they were just as dangerous as the stories said. But they were also honorable, thoughtful, and dedicated to protecting others. The galaxy was about to change, and Xylith was not sure if that change would be good or bad. She only knew that it was necessary. The Coalition Council met in the Grand Chamber on their home world. Hundreds of representatives from dozens of species gathered in person and through holographic projection. The debate had been going on for 3 days. Xylith stood at the center, exhausted from answering the same questions over and over again. Some council members were terrified of the humans. They argued that accepting Deathworlder protection would corrupt Coalition values. Others were pragmatic. They knew the Krager would return, and the Coalition had no way to stop them without help. Finally, the vote was called. It was close, but the practical voices won. The Coalition would accept the Human Protection Agreement. Xylith felt relief and worry at the same time. Everything was about to change. 3 weeks later, the Terran Defense Fleet established Forward Base Delta in Coalition space. It was built on an uninhabited moon, far from any Coalition settlements, but its presence was felt everywhere. For the first time in their history, the Coalition had warriors in their territory. The cultural shock began immediately. Human military advisors arrived to train Coalition security forces. Xylith watched the first training session with growing concern. The human instructor, Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez, stood in front of a group of 50 Coalition volunteers. They looked nervous and uncomfortable. Rodriguez was a combat veteran. His service record included 3 major wars and dozens of smaller conflicts. He had scars on his face and hands. His eyes were hard, but not unkind. He looked at the Coalition volunteers and shook his head. Okay, people, let's start with the basics. I need you to run to the end of this training field and back. Just a simple warm-up exercise. Go. The Coalition volunteers started running, or trying to run. Most of them were not used to physical exercise. Scientists and artists did not need to be strong or fast. Within minutes, half of them were gasping for breath. Several collapsed on the ground. Rodriguez sighed. Stop. Everyone stop. He looked at them with something between pity and frustration. How do you expect to defend yourselves if you cannot even run 100 meters? Your enemy will not wait while you catch your breath. One of the volunteers, A young engineer named Prel raised his hand. Lieutenant Rodriguez, we are not warriors. We are not built for fighting. Perhaps this training is not appropriate for our species. Rodriguez walked over to Prel. He was not trying to be intimidating, but his mere presence was overwhelming. He was tall and muscular, built like a predator. You think you are not built for fighting? Let me tell you something. Humans were not always warriors either. Our ancestors were weak. They were small and slow compared to the predators that hunted them. But they learned. They adapted. They trained their bodies and minds. That is what we are going to teach you. Over the following weeks, the training continued. It was hard for everyone. The coalition volunteers struggled with physical exercises that were easy for humans. They could not understand why Rodriguez pushed them so hard. They complained. Some quit, but others started to change. Prel, the young engineer who had questioned the training, began to improve. He could run without stopping. He learned basic self-defense techniques. He was still not as strong or fast as a human, but he was better than he had been. Xylith worked closely with Rodriguez, trying to bridge the gap between human and coalition thinking. One day, after a particularly difficult training session, she confronted him. Lieutenant, your methods are too harsh. My people are becoming injured and traumatized. This is not our way. Rodriguez looked at her seriously. Commander, I understand your concern. But let me ask you something. When the Kreger come back, will they care about your way? Will they stop attacking because you asked them nicely? No, but we should not have to become like them to survive. You are right. You should not become like them. But you need to understand something important. Rodriguez pulled up a training video showing coalition volunteers practicing defensive formations. Look at this. 3 weeks ago, these people would have run away in panic if someone shouted at them. Now they stand their ground. They work together. They protect each other. I am not teaching them to be killers. I am teaching them to be survivors. Xylith watched the video. Rodriguez was right. The volunteers were changing. They moved with more confidence. They communicated better under pressure. They were learning, but the exchange was not one-sided. Captain Chen had insisted that human personnel participate in coalition activities as well. Human soldiers attended coalition philosophy lectures, art exhibitions, and meditation sessions. At first they did so reluctantly, treating it as another duty. Xylith saw the change happen gradually. She watched a group of human Marines attend a lecture by Professor Ven, a renowned coalition philosopher. The topic was the nature of peace and the ethics of conflict. The Marines sat in the back, looking bored. Professor Ven spoke about an ancient coalition belief. Violence creates more violence, like ripples in water. The only way to stop the cycle is to choose peace, even when it is difficult. The Marines looked skeptical. One of them raised his hand. Professor, that sounds beautiful in theory, but what do you do when someone is trying to kill you? You cannot make peace with someone who wants you dead. Ven smiled gently. You are correct, young warrior. Sometimes defense is necessary. But there is a difference between defending yourself and seeking revenge. A difference between protecting others and conquering them. The choice you make in that moment defines who you are. The Marine sat back, thinking about that. Xylith saw something change in his expression. He was actually considering the professor's words. The real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A young coalition scientist named Turin approached Rodriguez after a training session. She was carrying a device that looked like a small cannon. Lieutenant Rodriguez, I have been thinking about what you said, about finding our own way to defend ourselves. I built this. Rodriguez examined the device carefully. What does it do? It uses gravity manipulation technology. When fired, it creates a localized gravity field that immobilizes the target without causing permanent harm. It is a weapon, but a non-lethal one. It fits our values while still being effective. Rodriguez's eyes widened. He tested the device on a training dummy. The dummy was instantly pinned to the ground by increased gravity, unable to move. He looked at Turin with genuine respect. This is brilliant. This could change everything. He called over his communication device. Captain Chen, you need to see this. One of the Coalition scientists just revolutionized non-lethal warfare. News of Terran's inventions spread quickly. Human engineers began working with Coalition scientists to improve and mass-produce the gravity restraint weapons. It became a symbol of the partnership. Humans providing tactical knowledge. Coalition members providing innovative technology. Together, they created something neither could have made alone. Xylith visited the training grounds. 3 months after the partnership began, she watched Coalition volunteers and human soldiers working side by side. The Coalition members moved with more confidence now. They practiced defensive formations and emergency response procedures. They were not warriors in the human sense, but they were no longer helpless either. On the other side of the field, human soldiers sat in a circle with Coalition artists, learning meditation techniques to manage combat stress. A human lieutenant was carefully painting with traditional Coalition watercolors, his large hands surprisingly gentle with the delicate brush. Rodriguez approached Xylith. He looked different than when he first arrived. Less tense, more peaceful. Commander, I want to thank you. Thank me. For what? For teaching us that strength is not just about fighting. These past few months, your people have shown me ways to deal with stress and trauma that I never learned in all my years of military training. I sleep better now. I have fewer nightmares. Your meditation techniques actually work. Xylith felt warmth spread through her chest. And you have shown us that defending ourselves does not mean abandoning our values. We can be strong and peaceful at the same time, Rodriguez smiled. Yeah, I think we are learning from each other. Your people are finding their strength. My people are finding their peace. That is a good trade. Communication alert interrupted their conversation. Captain Chen's voice came through urgently. All personnel, alert status. Long-range sensors have detected a large fleet approaching from Krager space. Size estimate, 10 times larger than the first attack. Ida, 6 days. This is not a drill. Prepare for combat operations. Xylith and Rodriguez looked at each other. The time had come. The Krager were returning. But this time, the Coalition would not face them alone. And this time, they would not be helpless prey. They had learned to fight back. The Coalition mobilized faster than Xylith thought possible. 6 months of training and preparation were about to be tested. Every available ship was being readied for combat. Coalition engineers worked alongside human technicians, installing new weapons systems and reinforced shields. The hybrid technology, combining Coalition science and human military engineering, gave them capabilities neither species had alone. Xylith stood on the bridge of her flagship, now renamed the Unity. The ship had been completely rebuilt after the first Krager attack. It looked different now. Still elegant in its design, but with visible weapons emplacements and heavier armor. It represented what the Coalition had become. Peaceful by nature, but prepared for war when necessary. Captain Chen's face appeared on the main view screen. Commander Xylith, we have completed our analysis of the approaching Krager fleet. The news is not good. They are bringing approximately 1,400 ships. We are outnumbered more than 20 to 1. Xylith felt fear grip her hearts, but she kept her voice steady. What are our chances, Captain? Chen paused before answering. Honestly, if this was the Coalition fleet from 6 months ago, I would tell you to evacuate and run. But you have changed. Your people have learned. You have better weapons now. You work together as a unified force. We have a chance. Not a good chance, but a chance. That will have to be enough, Xylith replied. The Council has decided we will not abandon our territory. We will fight. Good, because running would not save you anyway. The Krager would just hunt you down. Better to make our stand here, where we have prepared defenses. Chen's expression softened slightly. Xylith, whatever happens in the next few days, know that your people have impressed us. You have shown more courage than species twice your size. The Terran Defense Fleet is honored to fight beside you. Xylith felt emotion tighten her throat. The honor is ours, Captain. We will not let you down. The next 3 days were spent in final preparations. Coalition crews practiced their battle drills repeatedly. Human advisors walked them through scenarios, preparing them for every possible situation. Xylith barely slept. She visited every ship in her fleet, speaking with the crews, trying to give them confidence she did not fully feel herself. On the fourth day, the Kreger arrived. Their fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in a massive formation that filled the sensor screens. Xylith had never seen so many ships in one place. The sight was overwhelming and terrifying. The Kreger commander sent a message. It was short and brutal. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. Resist, and we will make your entire civilization suffer.
Captain Chen responded.
Before Xylith could. Kreger Fleet. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet. You attacked peaceful civilians under our protection. You threatened genocide. Those crimes have consequences. You have one chance to withdraw. This is your only warning, the Kreger commander laughed. It was a horrible sound, like metal scraping metal. Humans, we have studied your tactics from the last battle. We are prepared this time. You cannot win against our numbers. We will destroy you, and then we will take what we want from the coalition. Then let's find out, Chen said calmly. The channel closed. The battle began with the Kregers sending forward scouts, testing the Allied defenses. Coalition ships engaged them using the new gravity restraint weapons. The Kreger ships were immobilized, trapped in localized gravity fields. Human vessels swooped in and destroyed the helpless enemies before they could break free. But the Kreger learned quickly. They began sending larger groups, overwhelming the gravity weapons with sheer numbers. The battle escalated rapidly. Within an hour, hundreds of ships were engaged in combat across a massive area of space. Xylith commanded her section of the fleet with growing confidence. The training had worked. Her crew responded to her orders instantly. They moved in formation with the other coalition ships, supporting each other and covering weak points. When one ship's shields fell, others moved to protect it. The human fleet fought with the same deadly efficiency Xylith remembered from the first battle. But this time, she understood their tactics better. She could see how they used speed and maneuverability to offset the enemy's numerical advantage. They never fought fair. They always looked for the advantage, the weakness. The opportunity Rodriguez contacted her from the assault ship Valkyrie. Commander, we need your gravity weapons to hit coordinates I am sending you. We are going to try something crazy. Xylith looked at the coordinates. Rodriguez wanted her to target empty space ahead of the largest Kreger formation. Lieutenant, there is nothing there. There will be. Trust me. Xylith gave the order. 20 coalition ships fired their gravity weapons at the designated coordinates. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Valkyrie and 5 other human ships appeared, dropping out of FTL travel directly into the gravity fields. Instead of being trapped, they used the artificial gravity to slingshot themselves forward at incredible speeds. Firing all weapons as they shot through the Krieger formation like bullets, the tactic was insane and brilliant. Dozens of enemy ships exploded before they understood what happened. The Krieger formation broke apart in confusion, but the enemy adapted. They began focusing their attacks on coalition ships, recognizing them as the weaker targets. Xylith watched in horror as one of her vessels, the Harmony, took multiple hits. Its shields failed. The hull ruptured. Harmony, this is Unity. Evacuate your crew immediately. Xylith screamed into the communication channel. Commander, this is Captain Merrick of the Harmony. We cannot evacuate in time, but we can still fight. Plotting collision course with enemy command ship. It has been an honor serving with you. Merrick, no, you do not have to. The channel went dead. Xylith watched as the Harmony accelerated toward the massive Kreger command vessel. The enemy tried to shoot it down, but the coalition ship's momentum carried it forward. The Harmony crashed into the command ship's bridge section. Both vessels exploded in a fireball that lit up the battlefield. Xylith felt rage and grief war inside her. Merrick and his crew were dead. Good people who had chosen peace their entire lives until war forced them to fight. This was the cost. This was what violence truly meant. All coalition ships, she broadcast, her voice shaking with emotion. Captain Merrick and his crew sacrificed themselves to protect us. Honor their memory. Fight for the people we have lost. Fight for the future we want to build. Show the Krager that we are not prey anymore. Something changed in the Coalition fleet. The ships moved with new determination. They stopped being defensive and started taking calculated risks. They coordinated with the human vessels in complex maneuvers. They were not just surviving anymore. They were winning. A brilliant idea came to Xylith. She contacted Turin, the scientist who had invented the gravity weapons. Turin, can you network all our gravity restraint systems together? Create one massive gravity well? I think so, Commander. But it would drain all our power. We would be defenseless for at least 10 minutes. Do it. I have a plan. Xylith explained her idea to Captain Chen. Chen was silent for a long moment, then laughed. Commander, that is either genius or suicide. Probably both. Let's do it. The trap was set. The Coalition fleet pretended to retreat, drawing the largest Krager formation into a specific area. Then, on Xylith's signal, every Coalition ship activated its gravity restraint weapons simultaneously. Turin's network linked them together, creating a gravity well so powerful that it pulled in everything nearby. Hundreds of Krager ships were trapped, unable to move. They were sitting targets. The human fleet unleashed everything they had. Missiles, energy weapons, and kinetic projectiles poured into the immobilized enemy formation. It was devastation on a massive scale. But as Turin predicted, the Coalition ships were now defenseless. Other Krager vessels saw the opportunity and attacked. Xylith watched her shields fail, her weapons go offline. Enemy fire hammered against her hull. Then the boarding pods came. Krager warriors attached to the Unity's hull and began cutting through. They were coming inside her ship. This was it, the final test of everything they had learned. All hands, prepare to repel boarders, Xylith announced. She drew her sidearm, one of the non-lethal weapons the humans had helped design. Around her, her crew took up defensive positions. They were scientists and artists, but they had been trained. They knew what to do. The Krager cut through the hole and poured into the corridor. They were huge, heavily armored, and armed with brutal weapons. They expected easy prey. Instead, they found Coalition crew members working in coordinated teams. Using cover and suppressing fire exactly as Rodriguez had taught them, the Krager were hit with gravity restraint weapons, stun bolts, and sonic disruptors. They fell, immobilized or unconscious, but alive. The Coalition crew moved forward, securing the corridor meter by meter. Xylith fought alongside her people. She was terrified, but she did not freeze. She moved from cover to cover, firing her weapon, calling out targets, and coordinating her crew. Rodriguez's voice echoed in her memory. Breathe, aim, fire, move, communicate. They held the corridor. The Krager boarders were captured, not killed. Even in the midst of desperate combat, the Coalition crew stayed true to their values. They defended themselves, but did not become murderers. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Chen watched the battle progress. The Coalition fleet's shields were coming back online. The massive gravity trap had destroyed or disabled more than 300 enemy ships. The Krager were losing, and they knew it. The enemy commander sent another message. This time, there was no arrogance in his voice. We did not expect such resistance. You were supposed to be weak, easy prey. Chen's response was cold. You attacked people under our protection. You threatened genocide. You underestimated our allies because they value peace. That was your mistake. The Coalition may be peaceful, but they are not weak, and they are not alone. The Krager fleet began to withdraw. They had lost more than half their ships. Their command structure was broken. This was not a tactical retreat. It was a rout. They fled in disorder, desperate to escape the unexpected strength of their victims. The battle was over. The Allied fleet had won. Xylith collapsed into her command chair, exhausted beyond measure. Her ship was damaged, but intact. Her crew was alive. Around her, Coalition ships were reporting in. They had taken casualties. 12 ships were destroyed completely. Hundreds of crew members were dead, but they had survived. More than that, They had proven themselves. Captain Chen's face appeared on the view screen once more. She looked tired but satisfied. Commander Xylith, congratulations. You and your people just won a battle that should have been impossible. You should be proud. Xylith looked around her bridge at her crew. They were exhausted, some were injured, but they stood tall. They had faced their fear and overcome it. Captain Chen, we could not have done this without you. You taught us to defend ourselves. No, Chen said firmly. We taught you tactics and techniques. But the courage, the determination to protect your people and your values, that was already inside you. You just needed a reason to find it.